It's important to have a pre-tournament and a pre-match ritual, just like taking a shot. Let's say if you're in archery or shooting a basketball, you have a pre-shot routine, right? A lot of it comes down to, I'm dealing with the emotions, calming yourself, where to focus on, where to line up your feet, how to grip the ball. If you follow us, well, you can get our free download. It's at purlerwrestling.com. There's Winning the Mental Game. There's just a bunch of insight and obviously more videos here. If you look at the, I guess it's the categories on our YouTube channel or playlist, you can see choke proof your wrestling, winning the mental game, things like this, confidence coaching. Look at those sections. But, we haven't gone into great detail here. So before a tournament, when you walk into, a lot of us have a bad default. It's like a loop, right? So you go to a tournament, you're nervous about the outcome, you like seeing your buddies and you have fun, but deep down inside, you're kind of worried about that weight bracket. You think there might be a tough kid on your weight bracket. You're worried about losing. And then you look at the weight bracket and you're all excited because your first two matches are easy. And so you're skipping around and having fun, even high school kids. And then they realize they have the tough match coming up. Then they get into these deep, dark thoughts. Thoughts of losing start to overcome you. And, then the negative stress hormones start to engulf your system. And you don't wrestle well. And you might even win, but you don't feel good about it. You're exhausted. The fans are saying, that kid needs to get in shape. But you don't get tired in practice, but you get tired in matches. Then your coach is maybe not happy with you. Maybe your dad yells at you. It's just a mess, right? And then wrestling is no fun. And then we end up quitting, and then we say we got burned out. And then everyone says, your dad made you practice too much, or, you went to Purler Wrestling and they had you practicing once a week year-round. Wow, 2 hours a week. Tough to commit to that, right? But they blame something else. No, it's because you never learned, because your coaches never taught you, because most of them never wrestled at a high level. They never failed and succeeded at a high level. They don't spend 60 hours a week coaching and studying these things. They don't have to. I have to get results or I don't get a paycheck. I have to win. My kids have to win. We had 41 state champs in 2018, not including our camps. They killed it too, but our academy. We have to win. So I'm passionate about it, whether it's a business and a job or not. I just am. And I think a lot of times we just haven't been taught, right? And because sometimes we just passively go into the high school room or the YMCA program and say, I'm assuming that you know what you're doing, right? And sometimes they do, but they just don't have the expertise. And when I was a high school coach for a few years back in the 90s, I was a triple jump coach. I didn't know the triple jump. And I told my girls, they were third in the state. We had an awesome team in Texas, when Texas track is world class, right? I mean, there was famous coaches walking the hallways recruiting. It was pretty cool. And I told them, I said, I will help you. You just let me know how I can help you. But I really always defaulted them to Stacy, or specifically their coaches, the experts they had at Fort Worth. They had their club team, the AAU track coaches, and they were on these, pretty much world-class training programs. But, so I'm certainly not knocking coaches. I myself did my best, but I just didn't have the expertise. But I was willing to admit it and ask how I can help. And I had training manuals and stuff. So, sometimes, we're certainly not knocking the coaches who just don't have the expertise. You just don't have it, right? And that's the reason you've never learned how to get ready for a match, is because you've never been around people who have been taught or figured it out, who have done it or have tried to do it and failed, or who dedicate their whole life to performing on the wrestling mat, right? And I do, right? That's just been my job, my career for 20 plus years, is our academy and camps and online academy and all the things we have going, is just helping people to have massive success in wrestling. So here's a plan and kind of what you should do. And you can even write these down and you can tweak it a little bit. You might add a section or add a note here or there. I mean, you always need to customize, but as a general template, we want to get out of the default mode, right? Which we already discussed can be very bad. Number one, let me get here. I want you to, when you walk into a gym, I want you to to tap in, smile, tap into the fun of the tournament. You know, when I wrestled well, it would be cold in the gym, and I liked that. And I knew that my warm-up, I'd have to warm up hard, but you're breathing cold air. I loved getting my wrestling shoes on and walking on the mat and feeling the wrestling mat, you know, squish under my feet. I mean, you're really getting kind of tactile here, and you're tapping into the emotions of the competition that you're getting ready to enter into. We're kind of finding joy in tapping into that because, you know, when you're happy, you have different positive stress hormone, or not stress hormone, but hormones in your body. And when you're stressed out and negative and you're worried and you're scared and you're fearful, then you poison, you know, your body becomes poisoned. And so, you know, there's some great books out there on this topic, but it's so important when you look back at your great performances, whether, even if you lost, right? So we try to attach our confidence to, how did I compete and wrestle? Did I feel good about it? Not perfect. You're never going to feel perfect. There's always one thing you can nitpick, right? But do I feel good about my weekend? I've seen kids who get fourth place and they feel good about it, and I'm happy because they're on track. And I myself have gotten first place and felt terrible about it. So we want to attach our post-tournament and post-match evaluation based on how we feel about ourselves after the competition, and not necessarily just winning and losing, because we are going to lose matches and we have to accept that and be okay with that. You know, I know I'm not going to win every match the rest of my life. I have to be okay with that, and I have to write that down and address that and accept it. But, you know, I do plan on winning 4 matches in a row at state. I got to get those 4 matches out of the way, or 5 or 6 matches in a row if my goal is to be a national champ. You know, that's always the target, right? But so when you walk into a gym, I want you to look around and get excited about the whistles that are going to take place. Maybe you look at your parents in the stands hanging out with their friends, and they're getting ready. They're getting tucked in on the bleachers, right, for a 10 or 12 hour day. You know, then you go talk to your teammates, and you go hang out with your favorite coach. I mean, all of these things, just try to emotionally get kind of honed down on what you love about the sport of wrestling and your competition. Because now we're in kind of a joyful, excited state. We're like, fun, right? Where you say, this is going to be a fun day. And I'm committing myself to that. Even though I know in the semis I have a kid I've never beaten, but I've had a 3-point match with, and I'm kind of, you know, I know that's going to happen, but I don't think about that. I just really, even that's fun, right? Even that, I'm excited about the fun of, man, you know, I just got to get my first 2 matches out of the way, and if that match happens, you know, that's really going to be a barn burn. I'm excited about that opportunity that's coming my way as well. So, you know, that's number 1, is kind of tap into what you love about wrestling and live right there, all right? Because you want to sort of put yourself there. It happens on its own sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't, especially if you have years worth of patterns of doing it wrong. We have to reprogram ourselves, because your go-to or your default place that you go to is wrong, right? So we're trying to sort of relearn. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm going to commit to myself to wrestling smart today. All right? And I'm not saying don't wrestle hard. I'm saying you focus on wrestling smart. Wrestling hard is going to happen no matter what. We don't focus on things that are going to happen no matter what. I'm going to focus on wrestling smart and patient and aggressive and score when I can. I'm going to commit to that. And whatever happens, happens. I'm going to give up on worrying about the outcomes that could take place, right? If a baseball player is thinking about getting hit in the face with a baseball and crushing his eye socket and going blind, he's not going to be a very good baseball player. I say, bad things can happen. I'm not going to worry about those. I'm sure to be okay, right? And so we like to say, I'm going to commit myself to wrestling smart and patient and tough and mean and hard, score when I can. Whatever happens, happens. I refuse to stress out about those things. But I think it's going to work out okay for me. And number 3, deep breath. I always commit myself to making a real deep breath, calming myself, and I feel like I breathe in, energy, and I breathe out the stress and anxiety. I breathe in the cold air in the morning of a gym, right? And I breathe out any bad thoughts. So a lot of, that's kind of home. Anytime you find yourself, your thoughts drifting off like a kite off the string, you want to rein that in, okay? One of our wrestlers, our coaches wrestled at Mizzou, and what they did was they had a good, a psychologist, and they said, your thoughts should be like a river or a creek, not like a flood, right? That's overtaking a community. You don't want your thoughts to be a flood. You want to have your thoughts controlled, and that's what we're doing here, pre-match and pre-tournament. So a deep breath is kind of a good way to center yourself, right? Then I'm going to get a great warm-up. If it's the morning, I'm going to get a real hard warm-up. I like to try to sweat off a couple of pounds, and then I put all brand new clothes on, right? You can warm up in sweats. This is my advice, because we want to work out the lactic acid and everything, get woke up, and especially if you have to make weight that night, it's nice to be able to say, I lose 2 to 3 pounds in the morning during my warm-up, and a lot of running and maybe a few sprints, a little light stretching, a lot of hard drilling, and to go a 9-minute match, a 3-3-3. I want to get the first match out of my system before the tournament even starts. Then I can sit down and relax, maybe sip a little water, sit and chill for 10-15 minutes. Then I'm going to go into the locker room. I'm going to change all my clothes. If your socks and underwear and t-shirts all sweaty, you don't want to be in that state. So change all your clothes, put fresh clothes on. You had a good morning warm-up. That's all you need. Now, before a specific match, sure, if you can get on the mat and drill for 15 minutes, do a few sprints, you definitely want to get your blood vessels opened up, right? If you were just to get off the couch and go sprinting, you would get lightheaded. It's called O2 debt, right? Oxygen debt. But if you ease into a jog and your blood vessels start to relax and open up as your heart rate starts to pump more blood through, it's everything's is dilated, and you're ready to go. So you definitely want to do some sprints and a lot of warming up. You don't want to go out there cold from a muscle standpoint, and also just getting the oxygen moving and getting your blood vessels and everything opened up. Plus, the best way to deal with stress and anxiety is exercise. So, if I warm up, for 15 minutes, 10 minutes before every match, it's a good way to kind of help my muscles and body to relax, right? So that's going to help too. So make sure you're getting a good warm up. So in the morning, that's how we would warm up before a match. A quick warm up, drilling some sprints. If you can get on the mat, if you can't, just some sprints and maybe a little running, cartwheels, roll around a little bit if you can. Just kind of, start getting your body loose and getting ready. Now, as far as the match is concerned, I like to set a rough, loose game plan for the match, right? Maybe if I know my opponent. If I don't know my opponent, I might, if I had seen them, I might size them up. It's always good just to have an idea. Okay, I got a kid who's wrestling 113 and he's 6'1". I'm gonna have to size that kid up a little bit. So sometimes just a little game plan based on observation is good. Don't overthink it. And if you know your opponent, you can have a rough, loose game plan. I know this guy collar ties with his left hand a lot. I may practice a lot of elbow passes and so forth as a warm up. I'm not going to stress out and get too scientific about it. It's good just to kind of observe and kind of have a rough game plan. But then we say, hey, I'm going to focus on what I do. If he has these habits of doing these two things, I'm going to address that. I might drill it for 5 minutes. I'm going to say, I'm going to forget about it. I'm going to worry about what I do. Because we always want to go home. Home is worrying about me and myself, right? Home is always worrying about myself and what I have to do to win. Focus on what you need to do to win the match. That's it, okay? So warm up before a match, maybe a little game plan, revisit that. That helps to calm the nerves a little bit. It's just like studying your notes right before a test. It kind of it calms you a little bit before the teacher passes out the test. You revisited the notes a little bit. So it's always good to set a little game plan before the match if you can do that. If you absolutely can't, then I just say, okay, I'm going to wrestle smart anyway. I'm going to feel my opponent out, and then basically give myself permission just to wrestle for 30 seconds or a minute, not really putting pressure on myself to score right away, get a feel for my opponent, and then what happens is the light bulbs start to flash, and you start to get into a state of flow, or what we call lost in the wrestling match. We definitely want to get lost in the wrestling match. You know, your best matches, you won't remember a lot of it. You know, someone might say, man, that was a great duck under you hit. And you go, man, yeah, I guess I did. I don't remember. It just kind of happened, right? And you want to get lost in the match. Whether you win or lose the match, if you're lost in the match, we're happy, right? And you can't get lost in the match when you're consciously stressing out about little pieces of the, you know, the tournament or the match or the what ifs, or the fear factor sets in, right? So that's a big part of this too, is being able to get lost in the match. And that's the reason we don't want to hyper focus on what our opponent might do. But some of us like to know, just as a rough game plan. I know I did. My son was the same way. I go, do you not want to know? Or do you want me to tell you everything? Or do you want to do like I did? Just give me some ideas. You know, my dad would just say, hey, this kid's a competitor. And I would say, okay, that means I got a good one, right? You know, hey, this kid is fast as lightning. Okay, that's all I need to know, right? That's it. But I didn't want to script, right? You know, his track scores are 39.6. And I mean, no, we don't want to do all that, right? So don't get too scientific, because that's going to get us too consciously involved in the match, and we're not going to be able to relax and get lost in the match. So there's a little bit about a game plan. So right before the match, I re-emphasize I have great body language. We like to say act like you're the best, right? We like to act like we're the best, because something great happens inside when you just act like you're calm and cool and tough. Like, you know, just act like you're the man, you're the best, right? So good, confident body language, 3 or 4 deep breaths. Double down on focusing on wrestling smart. And our last thing that goes through our mind, besides wrestling smart, I'm going to commit to wrestling smart, but also I score first or nobody does. I really double and triple down on that, because that's the, you know, in a tournament you have 4 matches, you focus on the first match. Well, the first match has 3 periods. You start on your feet in the first period. So we break everything down into one little piece. So in a match, the only thing I can focus on is, I can't focus on the semis. That's going to happen tomorrow night at 7:30. I need to focus on this first match here at 9:30 in the morning, right? So you break the tournament down into pieces. Why not break the match down in pieces, right? So we say, I score first or nobody does, right? And when I'm on bottom, I'm getting away. So those are the last thoughts that go through my head. So number 1, kind of smile, and even if it's a forced smile, try to get excited about why you're there. Fall in love with the tournament and what's going to happen that day, and hang around the people that make you happy at a tournament. We want to be in that kind of a state, okay? Because too often what we do is we get full of stress and anxiety, and then 2 or 3 hours later before the big match, you're not feeling too good, and then your dad or coach says, get mad, get fired up. Well, that's like a cat scraping litter over a pile of crap. You're basically just covering up your crappy emotions with false or maybe even real anger. Some people even think that adrenaline is bad, right? Because that's sort of a fight or flight stress hormone. I don't know either way, but I know that getting crazy psyched up and angry before a match is never good. Right? On a performance scale of like a 1 to 10, you should be a 7 or an 8. Right? And there's some videos here about Joe Namath, how he used to get ready for his football game with the linemen. Now they can get super psyched up, just like a power lifter can. But a wrestler can't be overly angry and psyched up. So, but if you're just in just such a crappy performance state where you're full of fear and anxiety and stress and scared, and then you cover that up with anger because you slapped yourself in the face and listened to some hard rock and roll music or something, that's not doing you very much good. So we want to avoid that totally, right? And stay in a happy, excited place. Commit to wrestling smart. Whatever happens, happens. Always take some deep breaths. Get an awesome warm-up. Focus on wrestling one match at a time. Focus on a rough, loose game plan. This all calms your nerves. I focus on, I'm going to score first or no one is. I'm going to make damn sure I get off bottom, because that's going to be key. And those are my 2 commitments I'm going to make to myself. And I'm going to wrestle smart and tough. Whatever happens, happens. So there's some good advice that can hopefully help you to stay in a peak performance state and kind of a routine to go through. Because if your routine is off base and you've been doing it for years, you have to interrupt that. The problem some of you will do is you won't do it. You'll take some of this great advice and you'll write it down, everything, and you might add or subtract a few things that maybe you would need as an athlete. And then you'll try it once or twice, and then you will quit. And you'll say, we call it, I'm just going to do what I always do. No, you can't go back and do what you always do. What happens is, the first time you wobbled on the balance beam, you jump back up, right? That's how you became a world-class gymnast. This, if you commit yourself to a pre-match routine, and what I said about getting kind of happy and excited about the tournament, that's before the tournament and before the match. So this is a pre-match and a pre-tournament. You should do this 4 times a day if you're, 5 times a day if you have 4 matches, in the morning, then before every match. What happens is, if you commit and then you can tweak and say, I need to do more of this, I need to do more of that. Maybe there's a match you went in and you weren't fired up enough. You do have to tap into a little bit of anger before your match, right? This is a fighting sport. So you might say, I need to get a little bit more excited before my matches, or maybe I start my warm-up too soon. You tweak, right? But you need to make sure that you commit. If you are watching this, and if you will admit that what you're doing isn't working, then you need to commit to a pre-match and or pre-tournament ritual, and you practice it over and over. You keep jumping on the balance beam. You keep hitting your setup to your single leg, right? You do it again, you do it again, you do it again. And I want you to practice it in practice, right? Off season's 8 months for most of us. Before every practice, you want to get there 10 minutes early and really get yourself emotionally invested. A lot of what we're doing here is we're fighting off bad emotions and we're building on the positive emotions, because emotions, you want to be in a good emotional state so that you can perform. And by taking my confidence and my happiness about my match isn't just connected to a win or a loss. I want to win, right? But I connect it to, did I get lost in the match? Do I feel great about this tournament? Do I feel great about the battle I had? Even though I got second and I'm disappointed, I feel really good about it, And then maybe first round, I won easily, but I still didn't feel that good about that one. So I want to reevaluate that, and I take a piece of paper and a pen, my notebook, and I write down and I reevaluate that. So, I can start to move forward. So I want you to be very pig-headed, disciplined, hard-headed, and commit to every single practice, every tournament, every match, getting into your routine. And then before long, your new default, which used to be bad, your new default, this will almost start to happen on its own. But it might take 100 matches. It might take 2 years. It might take 3 or 4 months. It just depends on how bad of a state you were in to begin with, because sometimes we're trying to reprogram over bad programming, right, that we've defaulted into. So be hard-headed. You can check us out if you have interest at PurlerWrestling.com. We're located out of St. Louis, Missouri, and we've been in the academy and camp business for 20 years. Our camps have sold out almost every year for 16 years. We have athletes that drive 7 hours round trip for our 2-hour practices. Probably about 30 of them drive 5 hours round trip. So if you haven't heard of us, if you're in the Midwest, you probably have. But you can check us out at PurlerWrestling.com. We have our own 17,000 square foot training center just outside of St. Louis, 10 acres, bunk beds, you name it. We had kids flying in from Alaska, Hawaii, even kids flew in from Germany last year to train with us. So I wrestled at Oklahoma State under John Smith. was All-American for him, and I've been coaching full-time for 20 years now. It's 2018, and we just started our 20th year as a full-time academy, camp, and training company. So you can check us out if you had interest, but for sure, take this advice, and good luck to you.